It's that time of the year already where I sit down in the seat, talk to the camera about the latest Wrexham AFC transfer rumours / transfer news. Now the season, as you know, ended just less than a week ago for Wrexham, and the transfer rumour mill is already well underway with two names that we are going to be talking about in today's video. And as you'll know on the channel by now, and over the past couple of years on the channel, I will talk about absolutely any transfer rumour regarding Wrexham and assess what they could bring to the possible lineup for the upcoming season. Now, what I would just like to say before we get into today's video, and this applies for the transfer videos that are going to come across the channel for the next couple of months, I would just like to say that I'm aware that 80% of these rumours won't actually materialise into official signings for the club. These videos are just made for entertainment purposes for you at home watching this, to broaden your knowledge on the players in the EFL, what they could do on in their career and what they could bring to Wrexham if one player is to sign for the club. And it's good for me because I absolutely love producing these videos, researching the players, how they'd fit into the Wrexham team and the system that we do play. So I'm in my element producing them, and I cannot thank you enough for all of you that support them and leave really kind comments. So before we get into today's video, we're on the road to 29,000 subscribers as well. I think we're less than 700 away, so it seems a long way away, but if we continue pumping these videos out, and if there's new people coming across the channel, if you would like to see more Wrexham AFC content, like I said, this is your hub for it. Transfer news, we're going to be looking at the pre-season friendlies in depth a lot over our America tour, going out to Finland to play Man United and Poland as well. So everything over the summer is going to come your way. So if you'd like to subscribe, that'd be massively appreciated. And let's go for 350 likes as well if you would like to see 5 players that I think Wrexham should sign in the upcoming transfer window. Without further ado, enough of the self-promo, enough of the waffle, let's get into the transfer targets. So journalist Darren Whitcoop has reported that Wrexham are targeting Portsmouth wing-back Terry Devlin and League One and EFL Golden Boot winner Dom Ballard, who, again, him as a striker, his stocks will be absolutely through the roof after the season that he has just had for Leyton Orient. We'll get talking about him later on in the video, and I think it's only right that we do start on Terry Devlin, because Devlin is a name that Wrexham fans will be all too familiar with over the past couple of months. Cast your minds back to the January transfer window, where a fee was reportedly agreed between Portsmouth and Wrexham to sign Terry Devlin in the final hours of the transfer window. That deal fell through, but as we can see by the news, we're just less than a week on from the Championship season ending for Wrexham, and we have that long-standing interest in Terry Devlin, and he seems to be up high on Phil Parkinson's wish list. I think if we are looking at Devlin as a right wing-back who's coming off the back of an absolutely superb season on the south coast for Portsmouth, where he had a clean sweep at their awards evening, where he did win Player of the Season, Players Player of the Season, Goal of the Season. So one thing that we can gather from Terry Devlin is he's a big game player, he's an important player in that Portsmouth setup, and the role that he played in their survival this season was integral. And as a player as well, I've looked on social media, I've got the opinions and the verdicts from the Portsmouth fans. He seems to be everything you want in a wing back in this division, and at 22 years old he has showed some really promising signs. I think the main attribute that stands out to the Portsmouth fans is Devlin's work rate, and is one that will run his socks off from minute 1 to minute 90 according to the Pompey fans. Now I think it is interesting when you look at the current option that we do have at right wing back, Issa Kabori, who in my opinion a lot of Wrexham fans might think, oh, we don't really want Kabori coming back on a permanent. If I was Phil Parkinson, and in his shoes, and in my opinion, in Parky's view, I think he's going to try and get Kabori back next year. So I think if we are comparing the two, it seems as if they carry similar traits as a wing back, but I think if you're looking at Devlin, he's a lot more composed on the ball and looks a more consistent player in that starting 11, especially on the defensive side of things. If we're looking statistics wise, 4th most recoveries in the league, 9th most tackles per 90 minutes, 4th most defensive contributions per 90 minutes. So statistics do back up the fact that Terry Devlin is such a solid option at that right back, and I think the stats do just back up as well the fantastic season that he has just had for Portsmouth. I think as well, the one thing that we do need to point out between Devlin and Kabori is the fact that the profile of players are completely different. Devlin is more of a defensive approached right back, whereas Kabori is a player that is so attacking minded that sometimes you even forget that he is playing in that defensive role as well as going forward. We look at Kabori, he picks up the ball, he makes those darting runs down the channel, puts the crosses in, whether it's a cross to the back post that goes out of play or a cross that goes on Sam Smith's head. That is something that you can guarantee from Issa Kabori. Such an attacking minded player, constantly putting those crosses into the box, and I do think that the stats do back it up for Kabori last year, obviously 7 assists, but you are looking at Terry Devlin, a player that's played primarily in that flat right back role for Portsmouth, Would he be able to make that adaptation to that more attacking role? Does he have that attacking side to his game to fill in those boots in what is going to be a position that Wrexham are going to target and strengthen in the coming weeks of the transfer window? That is a question that you do need to ask yourself, and I do think it will be interesting to see what type of profile Wrexham go for. Will they go back in for Kabori for that attacking style of play, or will they go for that Terry Devlin player who will probably offer a more consistent and structured role in that right wing back spot in terms of going forward, and especially defensively, because he's very strong defensively, Devlin, and something that Wrexham fans could argue with Kabori at times is his erraticness at right wing back, and you could say his inability to defend. I do think that's very harsh. I think Kabori has got that good defensive side to his game, but if you're looking at a player that's going to be a consistent 7.5 out of 10 every single week, Terry Devlin could be our man. And if we are looking at a transfer fee, I've seen some stupid numbers be put up by Portsmouth fans. Yes, you're obviously going to want the best possible price for your player, but I think for a club like Portsmouth, who I'm not going to say they're fighting for money, they're scrapping for any last penny, but I do think as a club, £5 million should do it for Portsmouth. I think £5 million for them is too good to turn down. I think that could be reinvested in 2 or 3 different players and just help them strengthen their squad more than they already have done. And I think offloading Devlin, yes, it would be a big miss, because I've seen a lot of their fans saying that he's a captain material in future years to come. He's got those leadership qualities, so I do think £5 million could do it for Wrexham. It depends whether the club wants to put in add-ons on that, a possible appearance bonus, promotion bonus, cut bonus, whatever they want. I could see it being a flat base £5 million fee that could do the job for Terry Devlin, and he's a player that you'll see in the next video that I would really like to come to us. Talking on the next target, it's Dom Ballard. Now, Ballard is a striker and a player that will be monitored by a whole host of different clubs in the next coming weeks of the summer transfer window, and rightly so. I think there'll be some championship clubs looking at him. I even think there'll be some clubs possibly abroad looking at Dom Ballard, because he is a striker that deserves to be playing at a higher level. His season last year for Leyton Orient, absolutely fantastic. The first thing that I would like to say before we get into talking about Dom Ballard is there is a big question up in the air for Wrexham fans. Would he be the type of player that would fit the style of striker that Phil Parkinson does currently play in this Wrexham starting 11? It's an interesting one that we are going to be talking about in Dom Ballard, but if you are looking at him as a striker alone, forget the type of player that he is, the style of play, the type of profile he is. He is a striker that scores goals. For a struggling Leyton Orient side last year who survived on the last day of the season, Dom Ballard won Golden Boot in League One, and he was the top scorer in the whole of the EFL, scoring 23 league goals, which is absolutely phenomenal. You'd expect that from a player playing in a team that's top of the league, that's second in the league, but for a team that struggled consistently all throughout the season to produce them numbers in, again, a team that probably isn't creating all the chances in the world, that don't have the best attacking players, that is a phenomenal return. And I do think the key to Dom Ballard doing really well last season is because he's in a side where he has so much freedom up top. I think if you just even go back to last season for Cambridge United, I think he scored 2 goals in all competitions. I do think it is the way that Richie Wellens sets up for Dom Ballard to play up front in that Leyton Orient side, which I think could be an issue for Phil Parkinson if Dom Ballard is on his radar. We look at Phil Parkinson, he loves that type of striker that is going to fight for every last ball, that's going to cause a scrap with the defenders from minute 1 to minute 90. You're looking at Sam Smith, Kiefer Moore, put their body in the defender, just do the dirty work up front. But I think you're looking at Dom Ballard as a striker. He's been utilised this year or last season for Leyton Orient as a player that's going to make those runs down the channel, that's going to drop deep for the ball, go forward with it, make those late runs into the box, and just being a really movement-based striker in that Leyton Orient side, which I think is why he's done so well in this division, because he's not the type of striker like Sam Smith, like Kiefer Moore, that's going to have the ball lumped up to them, hold up the ball, spray it out to the wing-backs. He's that type of player that is good in the link-up play, that can, like I said, make those runs down the channel, just unease the defence. And of course, in all of this, he has an incredible eye for goal. I think as well what he offered for Leyton Orient last year in League One, again, the return is just absolutely ridiculous. And you have one of these players in every 2 or 3 seasons that just comes out of nowhere and has the season of their lives. He's first for goals in League One, he's first for goals and assists. I think he got 27 goals and assists last season. But I do think as well, the interesting thing with Dom Ballard is he is not up there for shots on target per 90 minutes. He's not up there for shots in general per 90 minutes. So I think it shows that he's hitting really good form at 21 years old. At this stage of his career, he's found his feet. He's now ready to set up to be an incredible striker up the leagues. And I do think it does just show a lot about him as a striker, that He's ruthless in front of goal. When he gets that ball, he will score and he will put it in the back of the net. I think I saw last season as well, he averaged 1 shot on target per 90 minutes. So to get the return that he's given Leyton Orient in 23 goals, 27 goals and assists, I think is just ridiculous, and I think it is a really good return from him. And if you are looking at the team of Leyton Orient, last season they only created 90 chances and Dom Ballard scored 23 goals out of those 90 chances created. So he scored less than half of the goals that they've created from those chances, which I just think is absolutely ridiculous. And having seen how he's performed this season, I think Dom Ballard is a very system-based player. I think you have to play to his strengths, and could that be possibly an impact towards what he does do in a Wrexham shirt? I think if we're looking at Davis Keeler-Dunn as well, at Barnsley last season, I think he was nearly at 20 goals and assists. It is about system-based football, and it is about how well you're playing and how consistent you're playing in the starting 11. And I think if Dom Ballard is to come into Wrexham and Phil Parkinson's going to say to him, look, we know you've done really well last year. We know you're a player that's going to run about and just going to unease the defence with your constant running down the channels, the late runs into the box. However, I would like you to sort of be that Sam Smith type of player that would add that competition to them, which I think is going to be very interesting, because the type of profile that Wrexham do have in this squad is very, very similar. We don't really have that striker that's going to be of that profile, you know, that 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", that's going to run their socks off for 90 minutes. The last striker I can remember of that is Jack Marriott, and we've seen how well he has done for Reading this season. We're stuck with sort of Sam Smith, Bailey Kadamachi, Kiefer Moore, all those type of hold-up players, those target men players that it's known in football. And I don't think it would do us any harm at all bringing in a player that's 21 years old. He's got a great eye for goal, a great return last season in League One, and yes, he's going to come probably at a very big transfer fee. Leyton Orient are going to hold their value for Dom Ballard incredibly high. At 21 years old, 23 goals in League One, they're going to want upwards of, I would say, £4 million. So I do think it would be interesting if Phil Parkinson would look in this transfer window to bring in a striker and sort of tweak our tactical approach in the final third, countering what we would have up front in terms of Sam Smith and Kiefer Moore. But I do think as well, bringing a new profile of striker in just to mix things up and go into pre-season with wouldn't do us any harm at all. And I think Dom Ballard, yes, you could say he's a one-season wonder, and I do think it will be interesting whether he stays at Orient, whether he gets a move elsewhere. It will be interesting to see how he does this season, because again, he's a very system-based striker, and I think he's done incredibly well for what he was working with at Leyton Orient. So that is it for today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like, make sure to get down there as well and click the red subscribe button. It's a bit of a shorter one today, but I'm sure as well there'll be plenty of transfer content coming your way over the course of May, June, July and August. So be prepared, put your seatbelt on, strap in, because it's going to be a long summer for Wrexham. We're going to see signings, we're going to see departures, and it's going to go off for Wrexham Football Club on the transfer front. So like I said, if you enjoyed, do all that good stuff, and I enjoy reading your comments as well every single video. I cannot thank you enough for the support, and until the next one, take care guys, up the Championship Reds.